All right, so let's switch gears and get into the search process. Once your destination and your travel dates or your date range has been established, you can start searching. You're going to want to first establish, is there a direct flight going to your destination, or is there a positioning flight that's needed? You can establish that by going right to flightconnections.com. That's my website of choice in order to figure that out. Now, it's going to be more necessary to use that tool if you're not leaving from a city that has a major international hub. Some examples of those are going to be New York, Chicago, Boston, Miami, Dallas, Houston, Los Angeles, San Francisco. And that's not an all encompassing list by any means, but at least it gives you a little bit of a baseline to where the major international hubs are. All right, so let's get into an example that you can use toward any redemption. Here we are on flightconnections.com. One of the things that I like also that is very useful, if you aren't too familiar with the IATA codes, it will pre-fill them for you once you put in a city. We're going to use the example going from Kansas City to Paris. We want to see, is there going to be a direct flight option? Or if not, what are the one-stop options that we can use to position? So I don't know what the Kansas City airport code is, so let's type that in. And boom, so it pulls it in for us, MCI. We're going to go over to Paris, CDG. So as we can see, there are no direct flights, and there are some ads if you're using the free version, but that's okay. We'll just close that out. Yeah, so there's no direct flights, but let's see if there are any what the one-stop options are that we can use. So there's quite a few, but you also want to take into account, does it make sense to use all of these one-stop options? So if we're going across the Atlantic to Paris, it doesn't really make sense to go to Seattle first, or Salt Lake City, or Phoenix. You know, there's so many other options. We could use Boston, we can use New York, we can use Atlanta, we can use Charlotte. All right, so since we were discussing going from Kansas City to Paris, let's use JFK as our positioning flight where we're going to position to then go to our ultimate destination of CDG, Paris. New York is an optimal place to go to Europe from. There are many different flight options from all the various alliances. And maybe you wanted to, in this example, you wanted to stop in the Big Apple for your layover or stopover. So we are going to start our search from United, and we're going to do this for a couple of reasons that I'm going to explain. You want to search by alliance. Now, I will say though, in the beginning, as you are learning, it is a good idea to just search through all the different airlines so you can get a feel for searching, get a feel for the different partner relationships and things like that. But if you're trying to be the most efficient, you're going to search by alliance so that you can work smarter and not harder. So we're going to start with United because United has a calendar feature that you can use to really get a very quick overview of Saver Awards. And then you could use those Saver Award dates to then make your life easier searching through the other partners. Let's walk through this example together. You're going to want to make sure that you select book with miles. And when you search, you don't want to search round trip. You want to search one way. Get each leg of your trip and book it that way. So I'm going to put in JFK and CDG for Paris. And let's say you want to go during President's Day weekend of 2025. So when I talk about United's calendar feature, this is what I mean. You're going to want to go here, click calendar, and depending on your date range, you can then kind of filter out and see, are there Saver Awards around the date you're looking to travel. So there are 3 different Saver Award dates in this week. So let's start here. We're already on the 17th. And you can filter by economy. So as you can see, there are a couple different Saver Award options that you can use to go over from New York to Paris. Then same thing you could do for premium econ and for business. And let's say you are wanting to go in business, but these are mixed cabin. But if you're looking to say, okay, well, hey, there is a Turkish Airlines operated flight at the Saver Award level. There's a couple of them. So what you can now do with this information, because United does not have the best pricing for most routes in the Star Alliance, you can then take this date and look for these flights on Air Canada, who has a little bit better pricing than United and also has more transfer partners than United. So now let's go over to Air Canada. Let's go over to Air Canada and we're going to put in going from JFK to CDG, book with points, change to one way, and we're going to search for February 17th. We're going to double check what times those flights were leaving. So we have 1 p.m. and 7:50 p.m. So we'll go over to business class. All right, so we do have the flights here, 1 p.m., 7:50 p.m., and the pricing actually isn't better for Turkish. On Aeroplan for Turkish, but because you now have so many different options, it's only 2,000 miles more. This may be a better option to go ahead and book your flight. Due to the fact that Aeroplan has far more transfer partners than United does, you'll be able to pull your points from a number of different flexible currencies. You then want to continue that process on the rest of the airlines in the Star Alliance that your miles can transfer to. So if you only have Chase points, we looked on United, we searched on Air Canada. You would then also search on Singapore Airlines KrisFlyer as well. You'll then move on to another alliance. So let's go to SkyTeam. So then the two airlines that we're going to search are going to be Air France /KLM Flying Blue and Virgin Atlantic Flying Club. So let's go on over to Air France. You log in, and we're going to put in our destination, or our origin rather, and our destination. And one of the good things about searching on Air France, you can leave the departure date blank, and it's going to pull up Air France's calendar. So let's go on over to February. All right, so if we are trying to go during this week again, let's go on over to February 17th. And as you can see, there is some Saver Award availability on the week that we are looking to travel for this example. So let's sort by lowest price. And voila, we do have some pretty good options. 50,000 miles, around $200 in taxes, all different times of the day. Okay, so that is certainly an option that's a little bit better than what we are finding on United and on Aeroplan. So we would write down all those three different options that we have. Now, let's go on over to Virgin Atlantic to see what we find there. Same thing again. We're going to put in our origin and destination airports. All right, so here we are on Virgin Atlantic. We put in all our search parameters, just remembering to always search one way. We put in our date, searching with points, and for Virgin Atlantic, they don't say business class, they say upper class. So let's search. And while they don't have the 17th, they do have the 18th and the 19th, around the same price as Air France, just a little bit less in miles, a little bit more in taxes. So we now have what I would say two viable options, two backup options where we could book our flights with. So that's covering the Sky Team. Now, what's left to search? We definitely want to search One World, and we can potentially search also some of the non Alliance airlines as well to see if maybe there's something there. But let's go on over and start searching in One World. So here we are on American Airlines. Our parameters are in, and let's stop and talk about this a little bit. This is another one of those airlines that you want to search, regardless of what kind of points you have, because it has a calendar feature. So in the Star Alliance, we have United with a calendar. In Sky Team, we have Air France with a calendar. And in One World, we have American Airlines with a calendar. No matter where you are searching, you always want to run searches through here to get a feel for what the partner availability is using the calendars from these three airlines. That is going to be the most efficient way to do your searches. So let's run this search. Let's see what we come up with. So we ran the search, but let's go right into the calendar. We're going to change the class of service over to business just to be in line with what we were searching earlier. And for this week, we see that there are only 4 dates from this week wherein there is business class saver availability. So let's stick with the 17th. Since we're already on the 17th, we could just click out and go down. We'll filter by lowest price in business. And we see an option through British Airways partner availability, but those taxes are monstrous. Not to worry though, we don't have AA miles, so then we would then need to go and search for this flight on British Airways. But let's just see what else is here. Okay, so now that we are logged in here at British Airways, we're going to go down to book a flight with Avios. And let me give you a couple caveats. When you are booking a flight or searching through British Airways, if you are going to have to route through London Heathrow, which is what's going to happen almost all the time if you are going from the US over to Europe, the taxes and fees are not going to be nice. You can, however, if you're doing like, US domestic and you're not having to route through London, you can get some very attractive rates. Even if you are going to some parts of Asia, you can get some very attractive rates to the Caribbean from a taxes standpoint. So just that caveat, but let's just run through the process, make sure we cover our bases. Our parameters are set. Let's just change it to business to be in line with what we've been searching, and let's continue. For the purpose of this example, we aren't trying to do any stopovers. So we have our results loaded up for the 17th. Let's just see what the pricing is. So yeah, very steep, $1,000 in taxes. This is not a viable option in comparison to the other options that we had with Air France and Virgin Atlantic. That was on an AA operated flight, on a British Airways operated flight. Let's see what that looks like. Not as bad taxes and fees, but far more miles. This is the most amount of miles that we would have to pay in comparison to everything that we have searched. So this is not viable. We can move off of British Airways. So what we're going to do now, we are going to consult the transfer partner cheat sheet to see what else we should search. So we started in the Star Alliance and we only have chase points. So we did search United, We did search Air Canada. So we would have to also search Singapore Airlines KrisFlyer. We did search Virgin Atlantic. We did search Air France. And we just searched British Airways. So it was just Singapore Airlines KrisFlyer and Iberia Plus that's left. I'm not going to bother to search Singapore KrisFlyer, but you get the idea. We'll run through one more example with Iberia Plus. Now, if you do have flexible currencies like such as Amex MR or some Capital One points, build points, the process would take a little bit longer, but it's the exact same process. You're just going to run through based upon where your miles can transfer. So if you have some Amex points too, we already ran through British Airways. So what will be left would be Cathay Pacific, Qantas, and Qatar. For SkyTeam, you would also need to additionally search Aeromexico, Delta Sky Miles. We already did Air France and Virgin Atlantic. You would also need to do ANA Mileage Club and these two as well. But let's go back and continue our example as if we only had Chase points. So now we're going to go to Iberia. Iberia, we're logged in. Our parameters are put in. One way, we're paying with Avios. Let's get a search in and see what we find. Okay, so we have our results up. Let's see what's here. So we have an AA operated flight. Let's see what the pricing is. Okay, so we see that it would be 62,000 Avios with 215 euro in order to book this flight through Iberia. So it's certainly not the worst option that we have, but definitely not the best either. But that is really the search process that you have to go through for all of your flights. And as you get more experience, you'll pick up on some certain nuances. You'll know which airlines you don't even need to bother to search and things of that nature. But that's it.